Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them and how you can build it yourself.
This episode of the Predictable Revenue Podcast is brought to you by our sales coaching and consulting services. Are you looking to create repeatable, scalable, and predictable revenue? We've helped thousands of companies grow their business with tailored expert advice backed by testing to ensure they establish the best practices that'll work for them. Head over to bit.ly/predictable revenue coaching to learn more. If you're still calling your customer meetings discovery calls and strategy calls, you're reducing the chance of a sale by 37%. I'm your host, Sarah Hicks, and today on the Predictable Revenue Podcast, I'm going to be chatting to an expert about how to attract high-quality clients without wasting money on advertising and techy funnels. He is a multi-Amazon bestselling author on marketing and sales, and his knowledge in this area comes from 38 years as a business owner and a hunger for finding the latest trends and applying them in an innovative way. He's created 3 multinational 6- and 7-figure businesses of his own, including inventing and selling 4 million units of an environmental product into 26 countries. He has spoken to and coached over 65,000 business owners, coaches, and trainers across 15 countries. He recently wrote the Back Pocket Guide to Self-Selling Secrets, and we're actually going to share a little Back Pocket Guide with you guys exclusively. Steve Brossman, welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast.
Hey, Sarah, it is exciting to be here with you guys. And you can probably tell from the accent that I'm from the land down under, and I can't wait to share some great things with you guys.
Nice. So excited to have you as well, Steve. Let's start off talking about this idea of buying energy. Tell me what that is.
Well, particularly now that most people have to get on virtual calls, depending on where you are in the world, depending on coming out of lockdown, going into lockdown. But the future is to be able to save time and money, is to be able to have the virtual calls. Now, a lot of people, if I can take you through a general process, they would start with either contacting somebody as a cold call, or somebody would contact them, click on their website. Now, the buying energy differentiates right back at the beginning. There are other people that we've talked off camera about this, that call themselves, that are basically titled by their category, their occupation. They might be a planner, a broker, a coach, a trainer, or a consultant, all of those sorts of things. And they are what I call the brown box. They suffer from the brown box syndrome. They sit on the shelf looking and sounding the same as everybody else, but it could be gold. I mean, you could be gold. For the people out there that are listening, deliver some fantastic services, but it's not until they actually get to know you, they meet you, and they unwrap the box that they find out how good you are. Now, if you're a brown box, the buying energy to talk to you, because you're the same as so many other out there, is quite low. But if you're positioned as a unique leader, providing unique services in the way that you communicate it, then the excitement level goes up. I'm talking to this person. They have this program product. So the buying energy goes up that little bit more. Then the next bit, generally they get qualified. I'm going to sell to you. You're the right person to sell to. Or you start giving them information. A lot of people just start sending content. We've got a 4, 7, 10 email sequence, but the content is all just about me. Here's the stuff that we do. Whereas the way that I educate my people is give them a taste of you, get them to know you. That old saying, the know, like, and trust, but the best way to do that is videos, communicate, so they can see the real you and connect with you on a personal basis, start having a relationship with you as distinct from reading about you. Mm-hmm. And then there's a couple of stages past that to get them ready for the call. Look, one of them is just the piece de resistance. And it's that one piece that has only had one call not turn up in 7 years of using it. And it's a very simple direct communication video. And it would be either with your phone, your webcam. Hey, Sarah, see you book in for our call. Can't wait to chat with you. Oh, by the way, had a quick look at your website. Had a look at your LinkedIn profile, looked at your company. I've got some great ideas already. I can't wait to share them with you. See you soon. Now, that could also be a generic one. Hey, it's Steve here. Great to see you book in for the call, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The buying energy, the anticipation, they know who you are, what you do. And if they don't like you, they've dropped off anyway. So you don't have to start rock bottom. You're not a commodity. and you don't have to lift them up. Getting somebody excited to talk to you on a call is what we say increase the buying energy before the call. So that's a long-winded but brief snapshot of what people should focus on.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me a little bit more about getting out of the brown box. So we've talked about, obviously, one of the ways to do that is whatever that first communication is that you have with that person, make it human, make it personal, like, get a little interaction going there. How else can because there are so many companies, even the ones listening right now, that are going to be in that position. They're in the brown box. They struggle to differentiate. So what is your recommendation on companies for making themselves have nice, colorful wrapping on their box?
Well, it's like, I'll give you a quick story. Christmas morning, we all get up, we have a look under the tree, there's all these brightly wrapped presents, and there's one brown box. What's going to be the last one that's unwrapped? We all know nothing good comes in a brown box. But the other thing is, we look at it and think the person didn't even value what's inside enough to wrap it with something pretty. And that's how people will perceive you. If you just go along and call yourself a coach, a consultant, you're a SaaS provider, you're an IT company, if you don't bother finding out what is truly unique about you, and it's more about the outcomes that you deliver, not what you do. Too many people get focused, I've got to tell them what I do. I've got to explain how I do it. Nobody really cares about that. It's what is it going to do for me, and how uniquely can you package your deliverables? And one of the easiest ways, and particularly when we work with our people, is they create their unique system, but then they create their unique blueprint, a visual on what it is that they do. Now, when you're the creator of, you elevate your authority status. Now, I'm the creator of the blueprint conversion system. I'm the creator of the back pocket guide to the art and science of virtual selling. I'm the creator of. I wrote something, I produced something, I communicated it in a different way. Therefore, I'm the authority on that piece. And that's one of the fastest ways is look at what you do, how do you do it different, but most importantly, how do you communicate it different? There's one thing that you've got what you do here on one spot, and you've got what they want to buy over there. The line in between them understanding and buying is the line of communication. Now, it could be coal or it could be diamonds. Coal, plentiful, damn ugly, but it gives off a bit of heat in the end. So it gets there in the end. So that could be your communication. It's the same as the others. It gets there in the end. Or it could be diamonds. And that is immediately highly attractive, perceived high value, and virtually indestructible. Your message lasts forever. The truth is, they're both predominantly just carbon. They're both exactly the same. One's had a little bit of heat and pressure. And so you look at who you are, what you do. Am I communicating coal or am I communicating diamonds?
And where do you think that if people are thinking about that now, they're like, okay, I've got to go, improve my communication, my messaging, where are the most important places for them to portray that? Is it this kind of in-person interactions? Is it like website? Where should they make sure that all of this is sort of communicated properly?
Well, in my good old Aussie way of saying things, bloody everywhere. Really, once up until the last bit where I'm more known now as the sales innovator because of the work that I'm doing, particularly in this area. Before that, I was mainly working in authority marketing and helping people stand out. So I was the authority catalyst. I gave myself the title. For 5 years, nobody took it off me. And the saying that I have is when you move from an A to a the, your business and your life changes. When you are a consultant, a trainer, an IT provider, a SaaS provider, a provider, you're an A. But when you're the creator of something, and it's not hard to create. And one lesson here for those who are out there and they're worried about being the biggest and the best, and I can't call myself that. two things to remember, two very important things. You don't have to be the best in the world. You just have to be the best in their world. And people get confused between expert and authority. An expert knows something, and authority is known for something. You just have to work out what you're known for. And here's another little tip. Ask your people. Have a look at the testimonies. If they value it enough to write something about it, say something about it, do a video on it, that's what they felt the most value in paying you money for. So in their words, that's what you should be communicating.
Right. Because that's the language that the rest of your buyers and prospects are speaking, and it's going to appeal to them. That's so interesting the way you put that. Because yeah, you may not be as you said, like the biggest, most successful company that does some of the things you do, but no company does exactly the same thing in exactly the same way as every other company in their space. So all you're doing is carving out your little category, your little space, and saying, well, we're the authority right here. And then that's your sort of unique value. And that's what you should be presenting to give yourself nice wrapping and a big bow.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Interesting. And a lot of your methodology, Steve, is rooted in neuroscience, right? You kind of take principles from that. I'd love to hear how that sort of applies to what we've just been talking about.
Yeah, look, I got into business quite a few years ago, 38. And the interesting thing was that I never meant to be in business. I was a professional track runner training for the Olympics, crushed 3 discs in my back, and you don't run real quick with a crook back.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with the fitness industry, and through rehab, I thought, yeah, I could do this, I could do it differently. And I set out to do things differently. Bought my first ever sales and marketing course, and it was basically back then the cost of half a car that I bought previously. So I invested a lot of money and just got fascinated with it all. And a colleague of mine who we helped position and create his blueprint, and he was working for a very high level research company, sent me a link to a webinar on the neuroscience of selling, et cetera, et cetera. It was at 4 o'clock in the morning for me, and I thought, am I going to get up? It's bloody neuroscience. It was a couple of years ago. Not only did I get up, I watched it, hit the replay button, watched it all again, because it all made sense. So much this is how I want to do it. But we really do need to understand how people want to receive it. Because if they're not receiving it and they're not doing it the right way. So for the last 2 years, I've just been, people would call it immersed, I just call it geeking out on all of the studies and everything that goes on. And the biggest thing that I find quite interesting, it's stuff that I fell on, have been doing for 10 years myself. Now I understand why it works. So here's a couple of the tips that I picked up that we could paraphrase, capture it, and give it in very simple ways. In selling, there are 3 different levels of influence, and whoever's listening to this might want to listen, well, how am I? What am I doing? There's the imposed influence, and that's 90% of what's being taught right now. Deliver some great information, find out what their pains are, say, I can solve it, and then deliver a presentation of all the good things that you could do, and then pitch your offer at the end. Now, that's the typical, what I call the pitch and present, and that's the imposed. I am imposing all this information on, and then get to the end and why you should buy from me. Now, the neuroscience have said now that they need to be involved a lot more. They use a lot of different terminology, but if you people want to remember this, when they're involved, they invest. So the next level of influence is collaborative influence. And that's just not sitting and talking and saying, yeah, this would be good. Yes, I think I agree. But it's using another part that I picked up is annotation. Now, if you watch a visual presentation of mine and the people that have got it right, they're actually drawing on the screen and they're annotating. Mm-hmm. When there's movement, our eyes are drawn towards it. Yeah, it's the old primitive. Is that going to kill me or am I going to eat it? So keeping people's attention in a virtual situation is so much harder. Statistics show that 86% of all people on a call are multitasking. So when you annotate on the screen, it could be the same presentation you've done thousands of times, but the minute you draw on it, it's individual to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching, I'm involved, and I'm preparing it as an individual for me. So that's the collaborative. And when we're teaching people to do their sales calls with their blueprint, they're actually stopping on what I call value pit stops, and they've got to hear. So, Sarah, you said that you're having problem, let's just say, standing out in the marketplace. You're feeling as if we've discussed a brown box. What would it mean if we talk about collaborating on a positioning for you to do this? Now, statistically, that increases the level, the quality of people, and increases your fees and rates by about 10 to 15%. Quickly calculate, what would an extra 10% in monthly revenue mean to you? Mm-hmm. So you'd calculate, and I would write it on the screen next to that part of the blueprint. And there'd be different spots all the way around that we'd stop and say, you said that you know you need to do this, you know you need to do that, but here's a plan on how we could do that together. Do you think you could do that? What if we did that? Because I know that increases generally about 20%. Could you see how that would do for you? Yeah. So there's an extra money. So all the way around, you're actually you're collaborating on the money that you're going to put in their bank when they work with you. Now, a lot of people in their presentation and pitch, they just say, here's all about us. Here's how much it's going to cost. And then they get to the infomercial stage, but wait, there's more. We're going to throw in this, we're going to throw in this, we're going to throw in this. Whereas the blueprint accumulative value system is all the numbers are adding up in their mind, and they're their numbers. Mm-hmm. And when they're involved, they get to a point where they couldn't charge more than this. And then they go to the self-influencers. They get to a point and say, this sounds fantastic. How do we get started? And there is no pitch. You slide seamlessly into, if we put all this money in your bank, would you be happy? Does it make sense we get started? And that's the big collaboration. And that's all based on neuroscience, is collaborating with them. They feel a part of it. They take ownership.
Yeah.
And that's the collaboration and the 3 different levels of influence.
Yeah, it's like a project that they're actively working on with you instead of, as you mentioned, somebody just kind of feature dumping and then being like, cool, so ready to spend a bunch of money on that. And you're like, I don't know. I don't really understand what the impact's going to be. And I think that's the most important and the most interesting part of what you just described there, because there are all these sort of like hacks and sales tricks and whatever around, I think they call it like the value stack or whatever. You don't say pricing first, you say it last, right? You go like, for this, this, and this, it'll be this many dollars, but it's still just a short little, phrase about pricing. Maybe you stack some stuff ahead of it, but it's still just this little conversation, usually at the end, that is about pricing and maybe a shock, but you are incorporating that value stack at your value pit stops. Like you're stacking it over the course of this long conversation so that they get to really digest the idea and come up with, okay, I can see what life would be like on the other side. And then whatever price you stick at the end, as you're saying, is fine because they can see what the result will be. And they're like, great. Yep. Yeah.
The difference is, I love what you just said. The difference is, as you're going through the way you do this is the implementation value. This is what you are going to get when we implement it in your business. This is the value in the business, not the value of extra stuff. So there's no real value drawn to when you implement this is what you're going to bank versus I'm going to give you all of these goodies because I actually don't think what I'm giving you right now is good enough.
It's not worth the money.
It's not worth the money. So I'm going to give you all this throwaway crap that's going to take your mind off what you're doing. You're never going to get to it. Sure, there may be some extra bonuses and things that we do, but first and foremost, and I tell all of my people, you never get to a price in investment or whatever you want to call it until you have, and that's the purpose of the blueprint, to demonstrate and agree on value significantly greater than their potential investment. So they've seen what's going to happen in their business, their life, or whatever the transformation is going to be before you even mention any sort of value. And it's like, well, if you're going to deliver this and it's only going to cost me this, I'm basically just going to take it out of the profits you're going to get me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, very logical. I love how it is rooted, as you said, in neuroscience. It's not just these things that we've decided as salespeople we're going to do, and that's why we're going to do them just because. But having it, rooted in neuroscience is amazing. You can see exactly why that would work. And tell me more about kind of the results that you see, because of course we talked about there being this 37% potential loss if you're not doing this the right way. So what are the impacts that you see when this is done this way?
Well, we'll go back to those of you, and I'd love to be sitting in a room and get you to put up your hand. How many of you use a discovery call? How many of you use a strategy call? Everybody has been taught to use it. Every category, business, you get them on a discovery call. It's not that the call is wrong, is that everybody now knows that at some stage I'm going to be pitched to. This is ask questions, here I am, I'm good, buy now type of call. And the energy before you get on the call has dramatically reduced. So if I can give you a tip here, is title your call by a high value outcome. Now, one of the ones that I use right now is a prominence and persuasion review, where I'll look at how you're standing out in the marketplace and have a look at your sales flow and make some recommendations. There's perceived value in that versus a discovery call. What are we going to discover? And that's the energy, is because I'm getting on another sales call. I'm not excited because I know at some stage you're going to be sold too. Now, my calls probably run different to most of yours, but the essence is we're going to get on, we're going to have a look, we're going to collaborate, and potentially there'll be a way to work together. And there's a very high percentage of doing that. The great thing, particularly for service professionals, and if they're selling their knowledge, their skills, or their expertise, they're selling themselves. They hate selling themselves because it's personal. I don't know very many people who love selling themselves. They often say, I could sell somebody else or somebody else's product 10 times better than I could sell myself. I hear that over and over again. Whereas when you have a blueprint, when you have a system, when you're collaborating on, if we put this system into your business, not, hey, buy me, I'm good. When we put this into your business, it's going to make this sort of an impact. Does it make sense? We get started. So the stress of selling me has gone. And when I've been in live events with hundreds of people there, and we get to the point of you no longer virtually get to the point of, hey, buy me, I'm good, you can see them go, It's just the stress has gone. It's an enjoyable collaboration that seamlessly goes into confirming the next step. So instead of present and pitch, when you get to that line in the middle, oh, I've told them everything, now I've got to ask. It's collaborate and confirm. It's like, well, you've seen all this. Does it make sense? Yeah, well, the next steps are. You know, the cool thing, when you get to the point of saying, does it make sense we get started sooner rather than later? And because it's their numbers, they've got to say yes. Well, yes. There are no objections. The objections are an opportunity to say no. They've already said yes. They just become obstacles that you continue to collaborate on. So, oh, yeah, money is an issue. Money says, that's great. Let's talk about that. Let's work out another solution. So to get to the point of saying there's not going to be any objections, there's just going to be a few obstacles that we may have to get over.
Yeah.
And when you treat them like that and you continue to collaborate, then the percentage of sales goes through the roof.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, yeah, amazing. So you're not going with the old school present and pitch, you're going collaborate and confirm. It's a completely different, conversation. You're actually providing value as well on that call because whether or not they choose to buy from you, you've come up with a plan basically that you're like, hey, you do need to do this, whether it's with me or with someone else. And you've kind of given them the roadmap on not how to solve it, but here are the pieces that you need to work on. So even worst case scenario, if you don't come to some understanding and some confirmation, it's a valuable call for them to be on nonetheless. And obviously, the usual sales call where nothing comes out of it is not a very valuable use of one's time. Sitting there and looking at somebody's slide deck and then being like, cool, I still don't want it. Definitely not a good use of the time. So that's awesome. Tell me about your DNQC formula.
Again, this came from research, cognitive research, and they've actually tested the order that you do things and how that affects the engagement rate and also the sales rate. And they've tested whether you do a question first, you do an insight, you do some information, you do information, insight, question, and there's differences between 7% and 14%. However, taking it one step further and then adding the quantify. And that's one of the things that most people don't and quite often can't do. So I've actually had a sales trainer work with me. He's a very high level sales trainer. And we worked out that he has coached people over the last 17 years, sell over $247 billion worth of products and services. So he's their sales trainer. He said, I've got this presentation coming up. I have trouble getting to the point of showing the value of my sales training over other people's. I do sales training. Mm-hmm. So we quickly put together a blueprint. We showed him how to, what I call swing the pendulum at this, and then create value pit stops and say, if we put this system into your business, we would be generating X for them. The big company is going to be X $1 million. He'd never taken off quantifying what he had been doing and working with them to collaborate on the quantification versus all they mainly did is try and explain what they did. And that's the big difference. Now, the first D in the DNQC, and this just flows through all of the different conversations. The D, data, that's information. I just gave it a different name. You give them some information. It might be something that you do. It might be something that they need. So you give them some information. And then there's a narrative. Could be a story on how you've done it. Could be a story on how they could do it. Or could be, even better, a case study with results. And you deliver that in around about 60 seconds. So we did this, and here's some information. And look, here's other people just like you, and they've done this. Problem, implement, results. So it's like, yeah, I understand how that works now. And so if we could put that into your business, and then the Q is quantify. The missing piece, if we did this into your business, let's work out the results that we would get. Now, there's two banks. There's the financial bank and there's the emotive bank. Most businesses, you want to put money in their financial bank, but there's also, the reduced stress, the increased pride. There's all of those things you need to look at as well. So that's the Q. And then the C, which most people don't do, is confirm. Yes. So there's the quantity. So you can see this working for you. Great. And then confirm the priority. It's like, wow, if we're going to be delivering this extra $50,000 per month by just doing this system, et cetera, it seems like that would be a high priority for you. We really should look at that sooner rather than later. We should get into it. Great. Yep, high priority. Note that down. So a lot of people will just do a presentation. They'll just do a pitch without really quantifying and getting them excited to have it done yesterday and get them to articulate, damn, I need this and I need it now. And that's what the buying energy is. Can I go into one other quick tangent?
Oh, yeah.
I believe, I know people make three investments when they buy from you. The first investment is an emotive investment. So you've got to get them emotively engaged with you. So the purpose of a headline or the start of a video, whatever, is not just to get their attention, But to get them to do an emotive investment, yes, I'm in the right place. Yes, he's appealing to me. Yes, I'm committing some emotion. I'm feeling that I should watch more. That's the next is time. Get the right emotive investment, I'm going to invest some more time, watch a video, listen to you, read something. And then the M is money, ETM. So at any stage and at every stage through a conversation or a marketing process, it should be, what do I want them to feel right now? And it's like, well, I want them to feel despair. I want them to feel hope. I want them to feel this. And that generates how you work with the people and the information you put out. I mean, Sarah, when was the last time somebody went to your website, your web developer, and said, hey, what do you want them to feel on this page?
Yeah, probably never.
No, and that's the thing. The flow of marketing and sales is to take the prospect through an emotional and inspired journey where in the end, in their mind, they're going to make a logical decision that they just have to work with you. So you're taking them on that journey. And the only way you can do that is now, what do I want them to feel right now? And as you're taking that through the cycle of the blueprint, getting them to increase the buying energy before they get on the call and they're going through to the end of the conversation, when you get that right and you know, are they feeling what I want them to feel, particularly through the camera?
Yeah.
And the one thing, I've been fortunate that I've had 20 years in video and TV, and I coach all of my people on camera confidence, because lack of camera confidence, unfortunately, is perceived as lack of product confidence. And if you're confident in front of the camera and they're communicating and they're talking and they're engaging through the lens, then that's an art. And that's why I wrote The Art and Science of Virtual Selling. There's the art and there's the science. And as long as you do it ethically, I'm happy.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely is. It's like being an actor to a degree, like learning how it's a completely different situation, trying to do this virtually and trying to, evoke the same emotional response as you would using this much space and this much of your body. And all the other things that, as you mentioned, a really high percentage of people are busy doing other things while they're on a Zoom call with you. So you're competing with every tab that's open, the kids running in the background. Like you definitely need to be ultra engaging. And so, you've given some really great tips on not only how to do that, of course, physically, and we're talking about appealing to their emotion, but then with the visual aids, visual elements that you're incorporating into it as well, to just keep them locked in to this.
Yeah, and you touched on something that's so important, particularly in virtual communication, is in normal communication, we've got 55% body language, 38% tonality, and just 7% words, verbal. Now, we're in a smaller box.
Yeah.
The 55% is now shrunk. Therefore, the tonality and the way that you communicate, the cadence, the pauses. I hate people that seem over-processed. Now, the only way that you seem over-processed is when you haven't practiced enough, is when you haven't got confident in front of the camera. Yeah, and that's the big difference, is when you have done it enough, practiced it enough so that you could actually be yourself and people buy you, then it'll come across as authentic. And you look at all the people in the movies and the sitcoms and everything like that, they all practice and rehearse like crazy their lines so that it looks unscripted.
Yeah. So that's second nature. You're not having to think consciously about, am I being engaging? What do I say next? How do I hold my head while I talk about this thing? Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
I reckon some of the presidents are the worst. It's like the hand things, and the politicians, they're all the cookie cutter. They just don't feel as if they're allowed to be themselves, because they might make a mistake. It's all the process. But the thing is when you get it right, you can be more of yourself, because we talk about creating an addictive personality on the journey, where it's harder for them to say no and walk away from you because they really enjoy the company. And when you work with what I call the happy hormones, the oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins, when you know how to stimulate those, it's harder for them to walk away from than to say yes.
Because it's been like a pleasant interaction, and now they're having to cut the cord and they're like, oh, I liked it though. I'll pay $30,000 to do this once a week.
That's an expensive cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up. We've gone through the whole journey of, starting off in this brown box where you don't stand out on the shelf under the Christmas tree, and then how to make yourself the prize that you are, how to show people that you really are different, carve out your own little category where you can be that authority, and then all the way through the sales process, how you continue to create that buying energy, all the way to the moment where you don't anymore have to actually ask for the sale, because they're there with you. You've built this journey together. You've arrived there. This is the destination. And now we're going to move on to the next thing together. So amazing. Why don't you tell us about the back pocket guide that you've got for our listeners?
Yeah, look, I did write the back pocket guide to self-selling secrets, which was half of the journey. And with everything that was going on, and again, I was just on a call with somebody today, the restrictions are coming back in, and more people are going to be having to work doing their virtual sales calls. So I've pulled all the latest research and tips and tactics and written the back pocket guide, the art and science of virtual selling. Cool. And in it, there's some videos. I like just giving away the tactics, the sales, the outline in written form. But you know me, I can't help but doing videos for you. So there's a couple of videos in there that show you how to do that. You're going to obviously put in the show links or wherever this video is. It's and if you can remember it, it's just steverossman.com/BPG, as in the back pocket guide, VSLB, virtual selling, and the guy that's introduced me through here as well, BPG, VSLB, but I know you're going to put it in the show notes. And when you grab that, from time to time, I run some free training for the people who get my guides. So stay tuned. There'll be some workshops coming up. There'll be some masterclasses. All that's included. You can come along and have some free training, because my mission is to de-stress a lot of the people out there that are totally stressed doing their virtual sales calls now. It's to create a movement of the people who do it right. And my goal now is to help more people help more people. And there's nothing worse than getting off a call, having that person either click on the red button saying end Zoom, or walk out the door thinking, damn, I could have helped that person, but I didn't actually have the conversation right. So my goal is to help more people by getting these conversations right.
Nice. Well, yeah, we'll have that link for all of you guys listening right now, so that you guys can get those tips and tricks on how to do it in this virtual setting like we've been talking about today. What about if people want to just get in touch with you about anything? Where's the best place for them to do that?
Look, the easiest way is just drop me an email, steve@stevebrossman, that's with 2 S's, steve@stevebrossman.com. I'll answer them all personally. I know you're not going to come and ask me some crazy questions. And if you need to, then we say, well, hey, listen, we can get on a call and have a chat, as long as it's not 2 a.m, because I don't work those hours. steve@stevebrossman.com. Just come and drop me an email. If you've got any questions, be my pleasure to answer them for you.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us on this episode of the Predictable Revenue Podcast. It was an absolute pleasure having you. I'm so excited for everyone to listen to this episode.
Lovely to be here, and I look forward to seeing some great results from your people.
Yes, definitely. And thank you to all of you guys for watching and listening to another episode of the Predictable Revenue Podcast. We'll catch you next time.